"One need fresh altitudes, Art, not old flight paths," Skylar Prescott said, barely looking up from his gleaming tablet. "You're grounded, permanently." The words, delivered with the casual indifference of someone swatting a fly, hit me harder than any turbulence I'd faced in 35 years of flying. My name is Arthur Coleman. I'm 58. For the last 2 decades, I'd been the chief flight instructor and standards captain at Intercity Airways, a regional carrier based out of Charlotte, North Carolina. I wasn't the guy giving flashy speeches in the boardroom. I was the one in the simulator at 3 a.m., ensuring our pilots could handle an engine failure in a snowstorm. I was the one whose signature was on every training manual, every safety bulletin. I just gave a slow, deliberate nod. No outburst, no pleading. My mind was already calculating. I packed my logbooks, a framed photo of my first solo flight, and the small, worn leather-bound copy of Stick and Rudder my own mentor had given me. The younger pilots, kids I'd trained from their first nervous takeoffs, avoided eye contact. Some of them I'd seen grow from nervous cadets into seasoned first officers' silence. Heavy, awkward silence. Lawrence Sterling, Larry, had built Intercity from 2 leased prop planes into a respected regional airline, a testament to his grit and unwavering focus on safety. He'd personally recruited me to head up training and standards. "Art," he'd said, his hand gripping my shoulder, "the lives of our passengers are in your pilot's hands. Make sure those hands are the best." Now, his son Skylar, armed with an MBA and 2 years consulting for a tech startup, was modernizing, code for purging anyone who remembered when checklists were paper and experience trumped algorithms. As I walked to my old pickup, that box of my professional life felt surprisingly light. A strange calm settled over me. What Skylar, in his youthful arrogance, hadn't bothered to check, or perhaps even understand, was the ironclad clause in my contract. Larry himself had insisted on it years ago. A loyalty and expertise retention, bonus essentially a golden parachute, 2 years full salary if terminated without demonstrable gross negligence or willful misconduct. I sat in my truck, the engine off. Through the windshield, I saw a CRJ 900 taxiing out, one of the fleet I knew intimately, every system, every emergency procedure. They were about to learn what happens when deep operational knowledge gets walked out the door. I didn't slam the door, didn't peel out. Just started the engine and drove home to call my lawyer, a sharp former JAG officer named Evelyn Hayes. My late wife, Sarah, used to say I had ice water in my veins during a crisis. Cancer took her 5 years ago, but her strength still echoed. Our son, David, is an aerospace engineer in Seattle. Our daughter, Emily, teaches marine biology in Florida. My life was built on precision, on anticipating problems. The same way I approach flying, Larry Sterling was more than a boss, he was a mentor, a friend. When Sarah was sick, he'd personally rescheduled my flight blocks, no questions asked. Family first, Art, always. The first red flag with Skylar had waved about a year ago. He started attending senior pilot meetings, spouting jargon about disruptive innovation in air transit and AI-driven flight scheduling. He'd question established safety margins, suggesting we could optimize fuel burn by reducing contingency fuel, something I'd fought tooth and nail. I saw Larry wince more than once, but he'd always smooth things over later. His young, Art, Larry would say, looking tired, full of beans and bad ideas. He'll learn. The second, more ominous sign was 3 months back when Larry announced his full retirement. Heart issues, the official statement said. I suspected it was the constant battling with Skylar. Larry looked defeated when he showed me the new org chart, Skylar as CEO. He promised to respect the core team, Art. Larry had mumbled, not quite meeting my gaze. "Your experience is the bedrock." My gut clenched then. He knew. The morning after the axe fell, Evelyn Hayes was at my kitchen table, coffee in hand, my contract spread out. My phone buzzed. Larry Sterling. I almost let it go to voicemail. Almost. 18 years of mutual respect die hard. "Art." His voice was gravelly. "What in God's name happened yesterday?" "Ask your son, Larry." I kept my tone even. No anger, just fact. I did. He said you were resistant to new operational paradigms, undermining his authority with the training department. Silence. Larry knew me. Knew I lived and breathed by the book, by the checklist, by the highest standards. "You're going to pursue this, aren't you?" he finally asked, Already have, I replied. Evelyn Hayes is on it. A heavy sigh. I told him to review those senior contracts. Said there were safeguards. Another pause. He cleaned house art. You Marcus Rivera. Lead simulator tech Jennifer Allen. Anyone with significant tenure. My jaw tightened. Marcus, my right-hand man in training, a pilot with over 20,000 hours. Jennifer, who could coax miracles out of aging simulators. Is that the new paradigm, Larry? Sacking the people who built this airline with you. You know it isn't, he said, wariness lacing his voice. But I gave him the stick. It's his plane to fly now. I heard voices in the background. Skylar, sharp, demanding. Art, Larry said abruptly. Click. I stared at the contract. Section 7, subparagraph B. In the event of termination without cause, as defined by gross negligence or willful misconduct documented through no less than 2 formal written warnings and a performance improvement plan, the employee shall receive a severance payment equal to 24 months of current base salary and flight pay. Evelyn had circled it. It's airtight, Art, she'd confirmed. They pay or we'll have a field day in discovery, especially with this pattern of age-related dismissals. I walked to the window. The old oak Sarah and I planted when we moved in. We'd nursed it through a lightning strike. Resilience. Something stirred. This wasn't just about money. It was about the value of experience, the respect for the foundation. I picked up my phone. First Marcus, then Jennifer. By lunchtime, I'd spoken to 5 other intercity veterans. Skylar had axed shock, anger, worry. Take a breath, I told each. Check your contract, call Evelyn. Then, one more call. To Eleanor Vance, a venture capitalist I'd met at an aviation conference, who'd once casually mentioned being interested in niche aviation startups. Eleanor. Art Coleman. Still interested in shaking up the skies a bit. 3 days later, I sat across from Skylar Prescott, an Intercity's corporate lawyer, a kid who looked like he still used a fake ID. Evelyn, calm and collected, sat beside me, her briefcase open, my contract front and center. This is preposterous, Skylar scoffed, waving a dismissive hand at the document. We're charting a new course. That's reason enough. Evelyn, all business, tapped the highlighted clause. Termination without cause as defined. Triggers a severance of approximately $480,000 in Mr. Coleman's case, plus benefits continuation. The young lawyer, whose name tag read Kevin, paled. Prescott, the definition of cause here is exceptionally specific. Performance failures, safety violations. He was resistant. Skylar cut in. Resisted new fuel efficiency protocols. That's insubordination. Documentation. Evelyn asked mildly. Written warnings. Performance improvement plan. Because the contract requires a documented pattern. Kevin shuffled papers, found nothing. Skylar's face tightened. Fine. We'll offer a generous package. 6 months. 24 months. Evelyn corrected, her voice like steel. As stipulated. That's insane. Skylar snapped. Well, fight this. I watched him. He had Larry's stubborn jawline, but Larry's stubbornness built things. Skylar's seemed intent on demolition. Evelyn closed her briefcase. Then we'll proceed with discovery. The simultaneous termination of multiple senior, highly compensated employees all over 50, it paints a rather clear picture for a jury. Age discrimination lawsuits can be very, very expensive. Kevin leaned in, whispering urgently to Skylar, who brushed him off. Before you threaten us, Coleman, Skylar spat, ignoring Evelyn. Know this, we'll drag this through the courts for years. You'll be broke. He added with a sneer. Good luck finding another cockpit at your age. Just then, the conference room door opened. Larry Sterling. He looked older, more frail, but his eyes were still sharp. Skylar, he said, his voice quiet but firm. Outside? Dead, I'm in the middle of? No, not a request. Through the glass wall I saw them. Larry animated, jabbing a finger. Skylar. Defensive, then deflated. When they returned, Skylar wouldn't meet my eye. Kevin. Larry said, his voice tired but resolute. Prepare the severance agreement. Skylar protested. Not now, Skylar. Larry turned to me. Arthur, I apologize. This isn't how I wanted your service to Intercity to end. I nodded once. Nothing more needed saying. As Evelyn and I stood, Skylar stepped towards me, his face a mask of fury. This isn't over. I'll be reviewing every vendor, every partner. Any outfit that hires you can kiss Intercity's business goodbye. Larry winced but stayed silent. I just nodded again, thinking of my call with Eleanor Vance about the niche market for specialized cargo and advanced pilot training Intercity had always dismissed. You're right about one thing, Skylar, I said. It isn't over. The severance landed a week later, a significant sum. It should have felt like a victory. It felt empty. That afternoon, I met Marcus Rivera at a small diner near the airport. Evelyn got me a year's pay, Mark said, stirring his untouched coffee. Not your deal. But it's something. They want an NDA tighter than a drum. You signing? He shrugged. Daughter's starting college. What choice do I have? I slid a freshly printed business card across the table. Ascent Aviation Services. Eleanor Vance, managing partner. Arthur Coleman, chief operating officer. Mark stared. What's this? You're not serious. Eleanor's putting up the seed capital, I said. We're building a new kind of airline. Specialized charters times sensitive cargo, executive transport, and a top-tier advanced flight training center. The stuff Skylar thinks is too small fry. But Mark's eyes widened. The high-yield niche Larry always talked about, but never had the capital to pursue. Exactly. And Skylar's too busy trying to compete with the budget carriers on volume, cutting corners on training and maintenance to do it. He can't win that game, Mark stated flatly. Not with U.S. labor costs and safety regs. I know. So does Larry deep down. I leaned forward. Jennifer Allen said Skylar's already looking to sell off 2 of our advanced full-motion simulators to free up cash, the ones we use for emergency procedure training. Mark whistled. He's gutting the training program. That's insane. He's desperate. And guess who's looking for simulator capacity and experienced instructors? I tapped my card. Ascent Aviation. The training wing will be your baby, Mark. Build it right. No compromises. Mark looked at me, a slow grin spreading. This isn't just business for you, is it, Art? This is personal. It's about standards, I said. Building something that lasts. Something that puts safety and expertise first. That's all I've ever known. 2 months after my ousting, Ascent Aviation Services was more than a business plan. We'd leased hangar space at a smaller airfield north of Charlotte, secured 2 lightly used Bombardier Challengers for the charter side, and were negotiating for simulator time. Eleanor Vance was a whirlwind, cutting through red tape, connecting us with suppliers. Jason Miller, Intercity's former chief of maintenance whom Skylar had also retired, came on board, bringing 2 of his best techs. We were lean, hungry, and a team of seasoned pros. My phone buzzed. A text from a contact still inside Intercity, an internal memo. Ongoing operational disruptions due to crew rescheduling. FA inquiry into skipped maintenance checks on 3 aircraft. 2 major corporate accounts threatening to pull contracts. I showed it to Eleanor. Skylar's new paradigms are hitting turbulence, she remarked drily. No satisfaction, just a grim understanding. Intercity employed hundreds. Their livelihoods were at stake. Wish should approach Universal Logistics, I said, naming one of Intercity's largest freight clients. Let them know Ascent will be wheels up in 60 days. Eleanor smiled. Already on it, Art. Their VP of Operations is very interested in a provider with demonstrable reliability. Then my phone rang. Larry Sterling. Art, he said, no preamble, his voice thin. We need to talk. I'm listening, Larry. A long sigh. I know what you're doing. Ascent. Hiring away my best people. I said nothing. It was business. I'm not calling to stop you, he continued, surprising me. I'm calling to ask for your help. Help? What kind? The kind that might save what's left of Intercity. He paused. Skylar, he's in over his head. Selling assets, alienating clients. The FAA is sniffing around. The board is concerned. So am I. Why tell me this, Larry? Because you're the only one who knows this airline inside out. The only one who might see a way through this storm. Another pause. And because I should have listened to you about Skylar. Should have never handed him the controls unprepared. I thought of those years. The camaraderie. The shared mission. What are you asking, Larry? Come to my house, tonight, 7. Bring Mark if he's willing. The board wants to discuss options. Yes. Larry's voice firmed slightly. Including a significant change in flight command. I looked out at our modest hangar, at the Challenger getting its new Ascent livery, the future I was building. I'll be there, I said, but I'm not making any promises. Fair enough. Relief flooded his tone. And Art, thanks for taking my call. 6 months after Schuyler Prescott told me I was grounded, I stood in the Intercity boardroom. Not as an employee, but as the COO of Ascent Aviation Services. Larry sat at the head of the table, flanked by nervous board members. Schuyler was conspicuously absent, unavoidably detained on urgent company business. According to the interim CEO, the air was thick with unspoken anxieties. Intercity was bleeding cash, its reputation in tatters. Ascent, meanwhile, had landed 3 major contracts and our training center was attracting pilots from across the region. Gentlemen, ladies, Larry began, his voice regaining some of its old authority. We're facing hurricane, force headwinds. Our current flight plan is leading us into a mountain. He looked at me. Arthur Coleman and Ascent Aviation have a proposal. Eleanor Vance, cool and professional, laid out the terms. A merger. Ascent Aviation, with its lean operations, strong niche contracts, and impeccable safety record, would acquire Intercity's operational assets. Intercity shareholders would get a stake in the new, combined entity, Ascent Intercity Regional. The key condition, operational control, including training and standards, would rest with my team. One board member, a banker, looked skeptical. You're asking us to hand over the keys to a startup. A startup run by the same people who built Intercity's original reputation for excellence. I said calmly. We know these routes, these aircraft, these crews. We also know how to run a profitable, safe airline in today's market. We're not cutting corners. We're flying smarter. The negotiations were tough but fair. Larry threw his considerable remaining influence behind us. In the end, logic and the grim alternative of bankruptcy prevailed. The board approved the merger. Schuyler Prescott was formally removed from all executive duties, retaining only his diminished shareholding. A year after the merger, I stood on the observation deck, overlooking the bustling operations center of Ascent Intercity Regional. The flight boards showed on-time departures. Maintenance logs were clean. Pilot morale was high. Mark Rivera ran the finest training program in the region. Larry joined me, leaning a bit less on his cane. Best quarterly report in 5 years, Art, he said, handing me a printout. Profits up, customer complaints down. FAA commendations for safety initiatives. Team effort, Larry, I said, scanning the figures. Schuyler called last week, Larry said quietly. From Silicon Valley. Trying to launch some new travel app. I raised an eyebrow. Asked if I'd invest. Larry chuckled. Told him to learn to fly a desk properly first. Maybe take a course at our training center. He smiled, a genuine, relaxed smile I hadn't seen in years. He actually listened this time. Said he'd think about it. Below us, a young first officer, one I'd personally checked out on the CRJ, was meticulously going through her pre-flight with her captain. Experience and new energy working together. Not one replacing the other, but complementing. You know, Art, Larry said, when I put that severance clause in your contract, I never dreamed it would be the thing that saved this airline by bringing you back to navigate it. I smiled. Neither did I, Larry. Sometimes you need a little turbulence to find a stronger tailwind. We stood there, watching the intricate dance of a well-run airline, a symphony of precision and professionalism. Some lessons are expensive, but the ones that teach you the true value of experience, integrity, and a steady hand on the controls, those are priceless. The view from the captain's seat, whether in the cockpit or the boardroom, was finally clear again.